All right, everybody, I believe we've got streaming occurring. We are live, and the presentation that we're reviewing together is also online. And I wanted to introduce the fact that we're coming together tonight on October 1st, 2025 for our third session of bargaining. And I appreciated the introduction Ms. Yoakum provided with where we left off in session two, because it's our turn to start tonight with respect to where we left off, and I'll be beginning with that. When we were together last time on the 23rd, PEA had rejected what we refer to as TISA. And upon that rejection, PEA resubmitted at the end of the meeting there at the table the 5% proposal on that same date. That was a proposal for the 5% increase. It was proposed without any revision or change from what we'd originally reviewed. The 5% raise proposal is in fact formally rejected. Polk County Public Schools, we don't have funding to support the request. We spent a lot of time in session one unpacking all of the issues that go around all of the funding limitations with respect to FTE, student counts, decreasing from allocation from federal and state sources. And we also want to summarize that it's not an issue of the school board or the district's commitment to staff, because we do feel that we are very committed to staff, and we feel that's been demonstrated in the past with respect to how we prioritize with respect to the raises that we have provided. You can see there in the one bullet, our most recent bargaining cycle of last year resulted in an average of 5.3% increase across, on average, for employees represented by PEA. The district focus on staff has been repeatedly demonstrated, not just in the last cycle, but we've shown charts from session one that shows an increased spending on increased in salaries over the last 4 years for parties represented by PEA. PEA leadership has acknowledged that Polk County Public School did not receive any additional revenue for this year. That was in our first meeting together. And again, we spent quite a bit of time unpacking that on the 16th when we were together relative to the revenues and how they've been impacted. I just want to kind of summarize. I'm not going to go through this again as we did in session one, but just to take a look at the 4 years, you can see the increased spending for raises. You can see how it continues to incrementally increase. You can see for 24-25, the 26.482303 number allocated. You can see that we've lost ESSER, and we continue to support positions and salaries, as well as monies that you see being incurred for insurance that's also being picked up by the school district as well. Please note the second bullet that from 2019 to the last cycle, there's been over $29 million invested to maintain the free employee insurance. So again, just glancing down the investment required to maintain insurance, if you added all those up, that's a $29 million cost that we've incurred and taken on our side and not handed to employees, because we don't want to provide that burden and put that over. We've been trying to take that on ourselves. The district invested $33 million in ESSER dollars and one-time payments for retention bonuses. And again, that has ended in 2024. We've also seen a decreased enrollment for our traditional schools of over 1,000 students, actually 1,233. And then we've seen that FTE has decreased by 4,648 in our traditional schools since last year. And then as of our 8th day count, our FTE was 1,644.42 below projection. So again, I'm just taking a few minutes to summarize where we were at the end of our last session with being very transparent with our numbers and our processes. This is not a smoke and mirror show relative to where the money is or what we've been budgeted or how we allocate those funds. I wanted to take a moment and summarize my understanding of the calculations when we left last time together. We had the cost of our 24-25 total staff benefits. That was the $520,346. That was the cost that we had arrived at when we had our raises in the last cycle. So what happened from what I tracked along was that was the value that was subtracted from a value that we came in a room on 7/30, which we've talked in the last session regarding. That was in the summer. We still had positions we were filling, and we've talked about the implications of that. And at that time, there were 8,359 total employees. The cost of those employees at that time was $491, $623, $927. So if you do the math there, that equals basically a difference of $28,916, $418 that I think you looked at as being available for raises. And I'm just kind of summarizing those sheets from session 1 that we had. And then the proposal came across at 5% from PEA based on those numbers of 730 of 516,205, 124. Now, with respect to our calculations, we start right where you picked up with the 491 number, that being the cost of our staff with the 8,359 folks. Since that time, we have continued to add staff, 222 added. That brings us up to 8581. I have another value as of 10/1 that I can share toward the close or share with you via email. But I wanted to offer the fact that in this chart, again, if we're just looking at our cost based on, I was trying to honor the numbers at 730. And I continue to want to state that as of 10/1, we have increased even beyond the 8581 number. So it continues to increase. I'm sorry, but beyond the 8359. And we have continued to hire even beyond the 8581. So I think we're at 8,700 and change now. So honoring this number of the 491, 623, plus our vacancies that are out there for our teachers and our paras. I didn't put ESPs in there because I think I don't think there's any posted, or there was only 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So that brings us to a cost of 520, 192, 200. So where I live is then I take the difference of PEA proposed 516, 205, 124. We've got a projected cost that is in excess of this value of 520, 192. And so we're already in a deficit of almost $4 million with respect to that proposal because of the increased staff. And then what I also wanted to talk about was we also had the value of the TISA, of which we have arrived at impasse with, but here's a breakdown of how that worked with respect to $542 salary, 120 benefits, and 662 total, for a total value of $3.4 million. Another way to look at this, I wanted to bring us up to date. As I said, I had numbers effective as of October 1.
Wait, 9:30, the numbers you pulled
9:30?
yesterday.
It was yesterday. Okay.
Okay.
I
I just want to make sure we're not,
As of today, the 9:30.
you'd have to call an ambulance if
Yeah.
I'd stroke out.
I'll correct that. It's the 9:30 number, Stephanie.
Okay.
I was grabbing the data today and I knew it was real-time data with respect to where we are like now. So the 8717 was the current number that we have as of 9:30. I'll qualify that. That cost of that group of staff, which would be teachers, paras, secretaries, is $510,328,673. Now, this is a number that includes what is paid for your retirement, for Social Security, and also for your workers' comp. And that's a standard inclusion that we've been using all along since session 1.
And that's the 22.24.
That's correct. So I want tonight to also take a moment and go beyond just this value, because the district incurs cost that we haven't talked about yet today, but everybody knows the benefits are out there. And so again, this is in an attitude of transparency, just to show where we're at. For the 8,717 employees, we all receive benefits of health, and we also receive benefits of our clinics, and we receive benefit of a life insurance benefit that's paid for everyone. And you can see the various breakdowns of those costs by those programs. $96 million in health, $4 million in the clinic costs, and $188,000 for our life insurance costs we provide to everybody that we incur. And please take a note over here. This is district costs, district costs, district costs. These are benefits we provide that are not passed on.
I do have a question real quick. Yeah. Now, because we haven't had health insurance increases to the board for the last 2 years, we typically do not cost that out when we're doing salaries, because it's the same from last year, same from this year. So that's just kind of set aside when we're actually looking at increased cost. So we recognize that that is a cost, but it's not calculated when we do like actual increases, because that now if it changes, if the board were to add $200 more a month, then we do calculate that in, because that is an increased cost. But over the last 2 or 3 years, we have not costed that out because it has remained the same. I just wanted to clarify.
Yes, and that's been a cost that the district has incurred. And we've had a lot of discussions around the cost of health insurance. So I wanted to demonstrate that if you're running numbers with respect to budgets, total budgets, please evaluate the fact that for those staff, it's a cost of $610 million, $832,196, because of all these benefits that we add in. I wanted to also provide that in comparison to the original number from 730 that we talked about with the 491. That 491,623,927 was inclusive of FRS, Social Security, workers' comp. But I wanted to put it on the record that when you add in those benefits as well, we're looking at a cost. So if we're comparing apples to apples in total cost for the district, our total cost is $587,999,522.
And I also just want to reiterate that we are talking apples to apples, because we did not have a board contribution increase or an employee contribution increase. And so when we do compare apples to apples, that's why we don't include that. I mean, you could include it, but we just didn't, because it remains the same. And so that is a cost there, but when we're looking at increases, we have not included that because the price has not increased.
And for me, it's not so much an issue of the increase. It's an issue of what is coming out of our funds to pay for that. Because if you're looking at our total revenues and looking at chunks that would be available for salaries, I want to be transparent in the fact that if you see an excess of those monies, I wanted to demonstrate that some of those monies are going toward these benefits. So we come to the place where what options do we have to compensate employees? And we begin to get as creative as we can. And we talk about options in lieu of salary increase. We review benefits and working conditions outside of salary, and we remain open to other suggestions. One of the things that we wanted to bring to the table tonight is one additional personal day. Recognizing the critical role that employees in supporting student success and the importance of work-life balance and wellness, the district is proposing to provide all employees covered under PEA contract one additional personal leave day chargeable to sick. The question has been raised, or could be raised, is this a conversion of what's already in contract for the total number? No, it is not. It would be an additional new day. This would be something that I believe would help with recruiting. It would help be a benefit for current employees as well, providing an extra day. And that would come at an anticipated cost of somewhere around $980,000. Benefits to employees. The additional day gives flexibility to manage personal obligations, family needs, wellness appointments. We know that there's a lot that encroaches on work life and a balance with their personal lives. So we want to reduce the need to use sick leave for personal matters, and employees have a decreased impact to their sick leave accrual for future health-related needs, supporting long-term financial and medical security. So I just wanted to briefly show that this is not a conversion. It's a proposal to change 6 personal designated days to 7. And it just walks across to para, and it walks across to ESP as well. So that is that particular proposal of one additional personal day.
10-month employees get 10 days worth of hours yearly, 11-month folks get 11 days worth of hours annually, and 12-month folks get 12 days worth of hours for their sick leave / personal. 12-month employees also get vacation time. And so would this, just to clarify, would this be a change in the denominator as well? Or would this just be a change in the number of designated personal days? So for example, a 10-month employee gets 10 days worth of hours each year. Would this be 7 out of 10, or would this be 7 out of an additional 11?
I'm gonna look for clarification with my team if they need to clarify, but my position and my understanding is it would be then 7 of 11 because it's an additional day. And then whatever denominator would be factored in, I guess, from there, but this would be an additional day. So you go from 10 to 11. Any clarification, team?
No, that's correct.
Okay, all right. The next thing I want to talk about is 15 days of paid paternal leave. This would be a second piece that we would be looking at in lieu of money. We're trying to be creative because I want to continue to stress, we value employees and we want to try to be creative to provide as much as we can. 15 days would be paid for approved paternal leave. This would be something to help with recruiting and again, be a benefit to current employees. And it would be available for fathers and mothers. And it would be available again for all PEA employee groups. The anticipated cost for this particular proposal would be between 1.1 to 1.5 million, based on the past 4-year trends that we're looking at with history. And the understanding of paternity leave has been low due to the lack of the benefit in the past. So there's a few key things to walk through with respect to the eligibility or duration of what we're proposing. Up to 15 consecutive paid work days of parental leave will be granted to any employee covered by PEA within the unit within 30 calendar days of the birth or adoption of a child. The leave is available only during employee's active work year and cannot be accrued, banked, or donated or carried over to a future school year. And it's one leave cycle per year. So we keep that clear. If you are having a baby or you're adopting, how would you go about receiving the benefit? You can see the bullets go for birth and go for adoption. With a birth, an application for leave would occur. That would be accompanied by a written statement from a licensed provider, medical provider verifying the pregnancy and providing an estimated date of delivery. Must be submitted to the employee's principal or supervisor no later than 5 calendar weeks prior to the estimated delivery date. And then for adoptions, the same premise on the first part, application for leave accompanied by documentation of the formal adoption approval from a recognized agency or court must be submitted to the employee's principal again or supervisor within 2 weeks of the official adoption approval. Conditions and clarifications. Leave is non-transferable and may not be used intermittently. Next would be employees may at their option use accrued sick or personal leave concurrently with parental leave. What that would mean is if you're on FMLA and you only had make up a number of days, the first 15 would be paid days provided by the district. Beyond that, you could use your accrued sick leave that's in your bank or whatever. Or if you use those and you run completely out, then you'd be without pay. But that's where we're going with the concurrent piece. But you'd have 15 days paid from the district up front from the beginning. The next bullet is parental leave does not extend or modify rights afforded under FMLA or other federal state statutes. And the employees remain responsible for meeting any additional FMLA notices if they wish. So basically all of the conditions required by law are still in place. What's in contract remains in place, except we're providing 15 days, the first 15 days paid. So I'm going to hand this out in a moment for what it would look like, but here's the articles. This is exactly what it looks like in the contract. And Karen, if we can at this time, let's go ahead and hand those across. I don't have slides.
Question. Why would it not be in Article 20 paid leaves? And why is it in 21 unpaid
I would be
leaves?
open to discuss that. I just dropped it because I grabbed parental leave because it was already there. I did feel when I did it that we were going to have a conversation later because it comes under the whole section of unpaid. But then are we going to carve out and pull a parental, have 2 parentals? We could work through that piece.
Okay.
I'm very fluid and open to that. And so I'm going to hand out what that language would look like. And what we're handing out here, and for those that are in the gallery or online, are just what you see on the screens is what's in the contract. And basically what you've seen in the previous slides in these bullets for conditions and applications are what it would be dropped in the contracts as well. And I will just briefly go through, I grabbed the paraeducator and the ESP. So tonight, we have 2 formal proposals that we're putting on the table. The 1 additional personal day chargeable to sick, excuse me, and the 15-day paid parental leave. And we will continue to work from there.
Okay.
So we're open for any questions you may have with respect to what we presented.
Okay. I think I asked most of our questions. And so obviously, Mr. Warren had recapped what had took place on Tuesday last week. where we had rejected just the teacher salary increase allocation dollars, because at that moment, it did not provide an increase for any para or secretary or about 1,230 teachers, with just using TISA. And so on Friday afternoon, Superintendent Hyde had sent me an email with an MOU proposal, which is exactly what you've heard Mr. Warren outline today. So I appreciate that. Thank you for outlining that for the bargaining unit. And so once I had received that email, it had distributing the TISA as they had proposed on Tuesday last week, in addition to these two other items with parental leave, paid parental leave, and the one extra personal day for everybody in the PEA bargaining unit. So I had immediately sent it to my team for them to review. We had an emergency bargaining meeting Sunday afternoon to discuss. They were able to read it, reread it, write their questions down, and we talked about it as a team. Based on and before we had gotten this MOU proposal from Superintendent Hyde, we had already initiated a survey to our bargaining unit to give their team direction on what to do. Because our union is a representative democracy. I am elected, my three executive officers are also elected, our bargaining team is elected. And so we are a representative democracy for our members and our bargaining unit. And so we wanted to get their input on how to move forward at this point. And so the survey was initiated. I think at this point we have just under 2,500 results right now. A vast majority before Superintendent Hyde had sent the MOU, and even now, the three options were to keep fighting for 5, to take the TISA money as presented by the employer, or to counter with something a percentage less with other things that could make holistically a good deal, kind of what you have put together for us today. And so with the stipulation that we needed to make a decision by end of business on Monday, because the state legislature and the State Department of Education are trying to pressure districts to have the TISA money done before October 1st, which is today. We disagree that the law does not say that. It's a reporting mechanism. We've never bifurcated TISA from traditional bargaining. And that is something that we didn't plan on doing this year either. Because we don't just bargain for teachers. We bargain for support staff, and we don't just bargain for whoever the legislature decides should get TISA that year, because that has also changed almost every year on who is eligible for these TISA dollars. Thank you, Florida legislature. If you did not get my sarcasm, there is sarcasm there. So my team really, we took a good look at what the superintendent had proposed, and paid parental leave is something that we are fighting for, and that we had planned to bring to open book. But at the end of the day, looking at almost 4,000 people not getting anything right now, if we were to just move forward with TISA, my bargaining team said that just wasn't enough to sweeten the deal. And a lot of people can't use the leave that they have now. And so when we're thinking about putting a burden on schools, a lot of folks were like, what am I going to do with a personal day? I can't take it. We can't get subs. Like it makes my life harder if I do take a day off. And a lot of teachers and staff feel that way. If a principal secretary takes off, they got 2 more days worth of work to catch up for just by being out. And it's the same for teachers. It's the same for our paraeducators. And so, based on the survey results, even at the time, our bargaining unit was not in agreement to take just TISA either. And so we did, I asked my bargaining team on Sunday for permission, because I will never have a sidebar with the employer without permission from my bargaining team. And so we asked permission from our bargaining team for the officers and staff on Monday to meet with several of the employer's team members, Mr. Warren, Mr. Pitts, Ms. Jenkins, Superintendent Hyde, Ms. Pascal was there also, to talk through, because we really wanted to kind of really get down to the numbers and the nitty gritty, so that we could have a better understanding, so that we could try to move forward. We did not accept the MOU as presented. And then that is why we're at formal impasse right now. The district did declare formal impasse on the TISA dollars. And for those of you that don't know what impasse is, it's a long, drawn out, ridiculous process, for both sides. But it doesn't preclude us from bargaining. And so we were adamant that we wanted to continue bargaining in good faith. So I'm happy that you guys are here today because I think we have some counters that will help this move along. And so with the totality of the package, we had already rejected just TISA with these two pieces that you have brought forward. But we do have quite a lot for you today. And it's not necessarily an all or nothing thing. We are willing to talk, but it is a totality in which that actually let me back up. When we met on Monday, and we had agreed to the numbers on August 26th from the poll that Jessica had done, right into July, beginning of August. We also are not unreasonable. And we saw that we had more employees hired, and we want to make sure that we are maintaining good faith in that too. Because we know that the legislature budgeted less than 1% to districts this year. And more of our money is going out the door in unaccountable vouchers to homeschools and private schools, and that is a problem. And so looking at the totality of that, at the meeting on Monday, I had asked to get revised numbers so that we could better project out what we really need to ask for. And so JD got me those numbers yesterday afternoon. You were cutting it close today. You were making me nervous, JD. But anyway.
You said you wanted them as current as you could get them.
Right. Well, no, he gave them to me yesterday, but he updated at about 3:30 as I was almost fixing to leave. And so I was able to make a few adjustments. So they do match with what you put. I do want to let you know that I did make those adjustments. Because again, I always want to make sure that our team is in a position where we are trying to get the most accurate information possible. And so what we have are 7 things total for us to look at today. And so with the numbers that JD and I have, and let me back up again too, because and I talked to the superintendent about this morning in full transparency, and I want to say it on the record here. The numbers that we have as of 9:30, whether we settle tonight or 4 months from now for 25-26, these are the numbers that we have to agree to use. We cannot keep having a moving target. Personnel numbers change every day within the day. And so these are actually pretty close to the numbers we had in February when we settled. It's a little more than 100 away. So they're pretty close. And so I do need a commitment from the employer that the numbers that we're using, and I did make the adjustments that JD had pointed out. It wasn't very many total. We were pretty close. I do need to have on the record that these are going to be our numbers that we're going to cost out anything for 25-26.
What I would like to do is see what you're proposing. I would like to go back and look at the 520 million and the number of people we
Okay.
had and compare
So,
it
and I have the
to
cost out
the
sheet.
700 that we just talked about.
Yes, and so currently, based on the numbers that we've worked out that I gave you late last night, and what JD had given me back, right now, currently we have 1,311 grandfathered teachers. We have 5,415 pay for performance teachers. And this includes student services and deans, because PFP, when we're looking at base raises, if we're not adding anything for cost out, it's the same. OTPT sign language is 21. I had 1,478 paras. I had 15 secretaries. Various levels. And I have this on the paper that I'm gonna give you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when we started costing this out, and crunching some numbers, based on the new personnel numbers, you are spending about 8.9 million less than you were last year. About $9 million when we were kind of gradiating things out proportionally is about a 2% raise. And then if you add TISA in, we are in on the paper, you will see that in addition to the other 6 things that we're going to outline, we are proposing a 2.5% salary increase across the board with the other 6 pieces that we'll detail. And so I'm going to give you guys this now. And I think my team mostly has it, so please send back any extras. And there was one number in the haste to try to get this printed at 340 to get here, where it says total diff on the third grouping, 8,868,980. I didn't move that number over, so just cross that out and add the 8.9, 8.8. Okay. I'll give you guys a minute.
So again, can you just walk us through your chart?
Yeah.
So
So the
the
20,
difference, walk me through how you got to the 8.
so the 24-25, same numbers that you just presented, that hasn't changed. So when we looked at the current cost for the people as of last night, with the spreadsheet that JD sent over, and I had pulled apart, the current cost for the 25-26 school year, based on the bodies that are in these schedules right now, would be $511,671,366 total. And that is with the 22.24% fringe. And so the cost difference is $8,868,980. And that's less than what we spent last year on the same schedule. And so when we calculated, and actually we started and just kind of went to where it got close to it. 2.5% would cost the district $524,463,150. And so with the difference that we're saving from last year's schedule, if those same people were here, we would be paying that money. And we may need to at least keep our market share of the money we had last year, knowing that there really is no new money this year. And so that plus the teacher salary increase allocation, congruent with past practice of what we've done since teacher salary increase allocation became a thing. We have never bifurcated. We've always agreed to something, whether it be what we agreed to last year or the year before, and we've just rolled in the TISA money to the people that it's applicable to. That the cost for a 2.5% raise for everybody, and again, we'll get to the 6 other pieces that we're bringing that bring this all together as a package, would be $12,791,784. And this also does not take out any of the grant funded positions. And so there's a little bit of wiggle room there too.
So does that mean with the positions that are funded out of federal, the 144 positions that we know they're on a cliff that we're likely going to continue to talk about, is that included?
Well, we did, yes. So everybody is costed out here. What I'm saying is that 12,791,784 does not take into account the personnel out of these numbers that are actually paid somewhere else other than the general fund. But every single person is counted for in that dollar amount. Okay. And so that is coupled with 6 other things. And so if you can kind of bear with us, we got a lot to go through. So the first thing that we are going to present is parental leave with some changes. Nothing drastically changed, but a few things that we're clarifying and a few things we do want to walk through.
So with respect to bargaining, I have put a proposal forward with respect.
So I guess
to
we
those issues,
reject
too.
it.
Those are on the table.
So I guess we reject that and we're kind of presenting our own package. And some of this is what you've proposed. You'll see it's similar. But I think for cleanliness of the process, it might be easier for us to reject what you put because we've already kind of done that through email. And then we're proposing this as kind of a package.
So on the record, you've rejected our
Yes.
1 day personal leave and the 15-day.
Yes,
That's a
with the
rejection.
TISA.
So then we're gonna work out from your language with respect to whether we're gonna accept your revisions or what you have presented
Yes,
or
sir.
not.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And so we've got, we also, out of one of the 6 language pieces is paid parental leave. I think most of my folks have theirs, so I'll keep a few extras. Does any of my team need?
Where's Linda?
Okay. And while you guys are getting that, because I want to be able to walk through this too. We don't think you're hiding money. We're pretty good about pulling your budget apart. What we would like our board to start doing, and it was, and I get the value of varsity tutors, but like, those are bells and whistles that when you are tightening your belt up for your budget, you start to get rid of the bells and whistles of things. And so we would like the board to make a commitment to really digging into that budget. And if there's bells and whistles like varsity tutors, that's great. It's a great service. But if we are in the situation we're in because the legislature decides to not fund us appropriately, we might need to look at cutting some of those things so that we can make sure that the people that are here educating kids every day can continue to see raises until we can get the millage referendum passed. Because we have about 2 more school years. We have this school year and next year. We would even start seeing revenue from the millage referendum in November of 26. And so that is something that is important to us, that as we are having to tighten our belts up, if the legislature continues to disinvest in public education, we need to look at those types of programs that are great to have, but can we actually afford them when we are not able to see 3% and 4% raises for staff each year? And so I want to go through the paid, and we put it in paid leave because we do have unpaid parental leave that can be up to a full year. And so we felt that we are doing paid parental leave for the short term and that it was more appropriate, this section in paid leaves. And so this would transcend teacher Article 20, para Article 6, and ESP Article 10 for all 3 contracts. I saved some trees. I did not print the entire article. I printed the first page and second page, and then where the parental leave picks up. And we could renumber as appropriate if this is accepted. So this is pretty similar to what you have proposed with some changes. I did not have time to make a PowerPoint today, so I'm just going to read it. Sorry, Patrick. Paid parental leave. Up to 15 consecutive workdays of paid parental leave will be approved for any employee covered under the association's collective bargaining agreement within the child's first year. We felt that this was important because it shouldn't, within the first 30 days is very restricting. If you have a spouse that, can't take it congruently, especially if if your spouse works for Polk County Public Schools, like you may not be able to just take it one after another. And so we wanted to give some flexibility to new parents to be able to use this within the year of the child's within the first year of the child's birth. That is how parental leave is set up right now in the unpaid section. And so we wanted to provide flexibility to new parents without, obviously, it doesn't impact the cost. But it does provide flexibility. This leave is available only during the durations of the employee's contractual year and cannot be accrued, banked, donated, transferred to another employee. We felt that within that first year, that if a child was born in the summertime, you have parents that can still take advantage of this, because if you have a child born at the end of the school year and you're off for all summer break, this could potentially, the way it was originally presented, bar them from using the 15 paid days. And so having some greater flexibility for new parents to be able to use this within the first year of the child's life, it actually would allow 10 and 11-month folks to still have babies if they wanted to in the summer and not be penalized and not have parental leave accessible to them. The birth, we had done slightly different. Application for leave accompanied by a written statement from a licensed medical provider verifying the pregnancy with an estimated date of delivery must be submitted to risk management. We felt that that was actually more appropriate than submitting it to a supervisor because those leaves should run through risk. And risk runs all the other leaves. And so we didn't actually feel that principals and other supervisors should be handling that because Linda's team would have to look at that anyway. No later than 30 days prior to the estimated date of delivery. And we did add a clause because emergencies happen. And I'm case in point, Jackson was born almost 6 weeks before he should have been. And so that happens. And so we wanted to make sure that in the event of an emergency delivery, the application for parental leave will be accepted within 30 days after or of birth. So that there was flexibility there, if there happened to be an emergency where the child needed to be born early. Adoption, it was the same. I actually think I interchanged court and agency, but you said agency or court, but same process. So adoption, an application for leave accompanied by documentation of formal adoption approved from a recognized court or agency must be submitted to risk management within 2 weeks of the official adoption approval. And then conditions of paid parental leave. Parental leave may not be used intermittently unless expressly approved in writing by the superintendent or designee for medical necessity. That's in line with what you had proposed. Employees may use accrued sick or vacation leave within 15 days Employees may use accrued sick or vacation leave after the 15-day allotment of parental leave has been utilized to maintain pay during the Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, or other approved leaves consistent with the CBA board policy, state and federal law. So I think the meaning's the same, but we worded it a little bit differently. And then number 3 on the back, parental leave does not extend or modify other rights afforded under FMLA or related federal state statutes. Employees are responsible for meeting any additional FMLA notice requirements if they wish to run FMLA concurrently. And so that is our first of 6. And this is our counter for paid parental leave.
We obviously had that parental leave may not be used intermittently, period. Can you unpack with respect to your logic for why in under conditions paid parental number 1? What would be some conditions that you would?
Well, no, this was your language.
No, my language.
Well, this was the language from the MOU that the superintendent sent.
But then you didn't follow what the handout I provided because I tweaked some of that with respect to the intermittent piece.
I didn't see that before I wrote this, so that's what's
So
written from the
My
superintendent.
counter will likely be, that it would stop and couldn't be used intermittent. That's why I was asking with respect to if there was not an intermittent option, or rather, let's go on your side. How would you use this with intermittent application?
I actually don't think it would. I really just mirrored what the superintendent had sent over in the original MOU.
So the initial language, Brian, for the benefit of the group was there may be instances where the parent chooses to take leave and the child may have a medical condition that warrants that. So rather than utilizing all 15 days at once, the child may require intermittent periods where they
Like in NICU or something like that.
NICU support. And I didn't want to put the burden to say you must use all 15 at one time. So I think it ultimately comes back, as you said, ultimately for review and approval, right? So we would address those on a case by case basis, but that's why we were open initially to intermittent.
Yep. Well, and I literally, when we were writing this with some tweaks, I looked at the language that the superintendent had sent over in the MOU on Friday and had added that in because we didn't see anything wrong with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the paid parental leave? Okay. So the next article is teacher Article 10, teacher authority and protection. Give you guys that. Oh, sorry. This one actually only adds a sentence, but it's a pretty important sentence, and it costs you no money.
Yeah.
Steph, I'm, I'm gonna take us back for a second, because I get into the weeds and
Yeah.
I need to have these conversations. Going back to the, number one with the birth, the emergency clause, because there was an emergency clause on ours as well. So I wanted to kind
I
of,
didn't see it in the original one the superintendent said. Again,
again, the
Okay.
handouts that I put over
Yeah.
to you. Because in ours, I had the language, the timeline may be adjusted for emergencies that may arise from the
Mhm.
estimated delivery date. And here's where I'm going with this. In yours, it says, in the event of emergency delivery, the application for parental leave will be accepted within 30 days of the birth. So to me, what that means is the baby comes early,
Mhm.
right? But there are those cases where I wrote the language I was proposing where it may be delayed.
mhm,
It may be another situation where it's a later delivery.
mhm.
I'm just offering that this may be kind of limiting with respect to only early deliveries and not
I think
those
we
that
would
have
be
an
open to that.
anticipated date and it's later. So, and again, this would be something you
Mhm.
presented language to us. We can
Mhm.
review it and go back, but I'm
Yep.
presenting some dialogue that you may get.
Mhm. Thank you. All right. So, what we have found, and this is not as prevalent in the secondary world, but we are finding that this is very prevalent in the elementary world. And so, and teachers, if you have not read Article 10, you should be very familiar and get really cozy with Article 10. You have a lot of rights in Article 10 that a lot of teachers don't use or don't know about. So please get very comfortable with Article 10. And so in specifically in Article 10.4, -2, in cases where, and this is existing language, but I want to have it for the full context. The last sentence is going to be the additional language that we're proposing. So right now, this is existing language in 10.4-2. In cases when the disruptive effect of the student's behavior is so extreme as to preclude the instructional process, the teacher shall indicate on the referral the need to remove the child temporarily from the classroom until such time as the student, teacher, and principal or other appropriate authority resolves the situation. That's existing language. And we are proposing to add a sentence in. The student will not be returned to that instructor's classroom or supervision for the remainder of the day. Because what especially our elementary teachers are finding and dealing with is that a child who has been so disruptive that is starting to throw things or starting to be violent with other students, or for other litany of reasons that they are maybe taken out, taken a little lap around and then brought back. And even some instances with a lollipop or a snack. And that's not hyperbole, that literally is happening in a lot of these instances. And it is happening just about every day. And so we wanted to add this sentence that doesn't cost you anything, but they could also empower, because, and I can tell you, if that child is brought back into that classroom, you have undermined the entire authority of that teacher. Because that kid can act out and every other kid in that class sees that kid acting out and that he gets to come back. And a lot of times he has a snack with him. And so we feel that this would be something that not of monetary, but of working conditions and of peace of mind and for lower blood pressure, which does impact our health insurance. That this would be an added necessity to teacher Article 10. So that is 2 of 6. Or sorry, yes, 2 of 6. And then the next one. Are there any questions, actually? Let me,
We're gonna talk.
well, can I present all of them
Yeah.
first? Okay,
Brian, make a note, we need to talk.
We'll do.
okay. That way, if you need to caucus on anything else, you guys can have the same powwow at the same time. Okay, are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. The next one is teacher appendix F, sick leave buyback. And we are also proposing, because paras and secretaries don't have any article that addresses sick leave buyback. And the language in the teacher contract currently is really, it doesn't exist because these were all from the 2009-2010 school year. And it's just sat there for no reason. And so we are proposing to strike the language as written, and then we are adding new language. And before I get into the language, you know, you already have this exposure on your books with leave, with terminal payouts, with all that kind of stuff. And so another meaningful way, instead of just giving another personal day, right, that we can't really use, the people, especially the people that have been here a while, that have hours and hours and hours racked up that they will probably never be able to use. Giving them a meaningful incentive to do sick leave buyback not only benefits the employee, but it also mitigates your exposure with keeping that time on the books for such a long, until that employee separates from the district, whether through, you know, resignation or retirement or what have you. And the ability to be able to contain, and in a structured way, sick leave buyback will also help you hopefully, you know, budget that exposure long term. And if you are doing buyback every year, then if I'm going to be here another 25 years, in 25 years, my hourly rate is going to be hopefully a little bit higher than it is today. And then you would be paying me out at the higher rate of pay instead of my current rate now. And so we think that this is mutually beneficial to the district in a budgeting manner and an exposure manner for terminal pay. And we feel that this is really beneficial for a lot of our folks who have a lot of time on the books. And so the language reads, any employee with 11 or more sick leave days accrued by the end of April of each year may cash in up to 10 days at 100% payout using the employee's current regular hourly rate of pay. A balance of at least 10 days must be left in the employee's sick leave balance after cash out. Employees must submit the request for sick leave payout with a district-provided process by May 31st of each year, with payout of the requested days in the end of June paycheck. And we did give an example. For example, if an employee has 11 days of sick leave, they may cash out 1 day at 100% payout with a remaining balance of 10 days of sick leave. And then the converse of that, if they have more than 20 days, they can cash out 10 days of sick leave and at least maintain a 10-day balance of their sick leave moving into the next year. And so we do feel that this is mutually beneficial to both parties. It not only gets money into staff's pocket at the end of the year, it also helps you mitigate and plan for terminal payout and having that exposure on the books that you're responsible for.
So the only thing to consider there, believe actually, the leave accrual and the payout is specific to the year that the leave goes earned. So unused leave, we'd have to go back and do a calculation. They would not get paid at their current rate. So if you have leave on the books that you earned 2 years ago, you get paid at that rate for your payout, not the maximum rate. I'm pretty sure that that's what the statute says, but we'd have to go back and look at it.
I don't think so.
Like I said, we'll go back.
Okay.
and look at it.
All right. Well, if you can go back and look at that, but even then, this would still, because they would be cashing these days out at their current rate, it would help you, if that is the case, not have to go back and figure out what their hourly rate of pay was when they earned that leave, because I don't know how you would even do that logistically. But we're open to conversation on that, but that is the proposal for the sick leave buyback.
Qualifying question. I'm reading two things and I don't like the word assume, so I want to make sure. So this is only one payout per year.
Yes.
And I'm looking at by the end of April, so I'm assuming that payout option would only be from like April to May because the deadline was May 31st.
Well, and we figured that, you know, you would want that off of your books if we were going to do this by the end of the fiscal year. And so by April, everybody, because you get 4 up front, you get 4 days worth of hours up front. So your 10-month employees, I believe it's February that you've earned all 10 of your days. And then March, it would be for your 11-month employees. And then April would be your 12-month employees would earn their last accrual day.
I guess the point I'm making is by your proposal, we'd only be open to receive the payouts for a period of like maybe 6 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah, they would have
We
to,
wouldn't do it in October.
No,
It would
no.
only be through.
it would
the-
only be in this window at the end of the
End of
fiscal year.
April to May 31st.
Mhm.
All right, that's what I
Yep.
want to clarify.
Yep. And then that way, however that system is gonna set up, and I don't see Ann here. But Ann would definitely want to be looking at that with SAP upgrade. And seeing how that process would work. But we figured that if they have a month to send in those requests, and that the end of June would be a reasonable timeline for payout if you knew. And so again, we're not trying to be unreasonable, but we felt that that was something that could be done by the end of the fiscal year. Then it's off your books going into the new fiscal year. So that is
3 of 6.
3 of 6.
But just to clarify, we have a policy actually that stipulates has to be paid out, regardless of what the state thinks, so we do have a policy.
All right. 4 of 6 to go with the monetary proposal. This is found in Teacher Article 4. We would be proposing to add a 4.15. Would also be found in Para Article 4, and we would be adding a 4.28 to the para contract. And this would also be found in ESP Article 5, and we would be adding a 5.28 to that article. It would be supervisor feedback. And this is something that I have heard since I've been in this seat, is that people want a way to be able to give meaningful feedback to their supervisors. And so the language reads 4.15, and I'll just use the 4.15, but it would be mirrored in the other 2 contracts. Each member of the bargaining unit shall have the opportunity to provide feedback to their administrators and/or supervisors quarterly in the form of an electronic anonymous survey with questions in a format to be mutually agreed to by the district and the association. This feedback is meant to assist administration in refining their policies, procedures, and management style for continuous improvement of worksite morale and operations. This feedback will be provided at request of the association through the chief of schools. And we had said, we don't really want these unless we are looking at a school that we might be having some issues pop up. And then we would then request through the chief of schools to see what that feedback might be, so that we can work collaboratively to try to fix some of the issues that we might be seeing on the ground. And this would hopefully provide meaningful feedback for self-reflection, for administrative teams to not be punitive, but to really hear what their staff is going through and how they, as the instructional and really the business managers on that campus, can better help create a good working environment and a good learning environment for students.
Qualifier on administrators, to me, that's principals, APs, and I'm specifically asking, does that go down to the dean as well?
No, deans are a part of
So,
our contract.
Principals and APs, and some of our schools have numerous APs, so the principal would be the admin that's over the school culture and
Mhm.
climate. So, I want to put that on the record, and quarterly that's a lot to take on with respect to 4 times a year.
Well, what we were thinking with that, because, and I will say, we had kind of talked back and forth about this. We wanted to see if there was something wrong, or if there was something that, our regional superintendents could get feedback on early. Why wait a whole semester when something very easy as a communication piece not be festering, that we could get actionable feedback? And I don't think we're talking about 100-question survey. Really just giving some opportunities for continuous feedback, because we get continuous feedback all the time. And we're expected to take that feedback and become better, right? And so we want an opportunity to also see where our administrators can grow in maybe areas that they didn't know were a problem. And then the quarterly we ended up going quarterly, because why wait a whole semester to figure out if something's wrong when it could be pretty easily fixed? So that was the rationale of the quarterly.
Would this be in lieu of or in addition to the surveys that you also at present do some schools?
We don't really do too many climate surveys. We usually do maybe 2 or 3 a year. And really not even that. And Tracy's back there too. We've worked pretty closely with her, and then Mr. Green before her. Really, since not very many. And so if we really found that there was something wrong or something that needed to be addressed, we would still be able to, as their union, put a survey out. But that might, I mean, doing something like this might even mitigate us even having to do a comprehensive climate survey like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, 5 of 6. And this is going to be found in Teacher Article 6, teaching conditions. I also did not print out the entire Article 6 to save some trees. Because we are also just adding a sentence into, and it ends up being on page 7 of 11, but I only printed the first page. So you can see that we are looking at 6.6-2 heating and air condition. And so if you flip on the back where this language resides, current language, and I'll read it for the full context. 6.6-2 existing language, maintain heating and air conditioning equipment where available to provide a comfortable and healthy environment when school is in session, except in emergency situations. We are proposing to add a sentence that says thermostat temperature will remain under the control of the assigned instructional staff in each individual classroom or area. And this has been, I know, a point of contention over the last several years when the air conditioning controls started changing to the new ones. And I'm going to tell you, as a woman in her 40s, and probably most of our workforce is in the same boat at this point. When I get hot, I get angry. And I think a lot of you can probably empathize. And when I'm angry, I'm not my best teacher. And I think we can all agree to that. And it's really not a good learning environment for kids when we have 30+ kids in a room and the room is hot. And so this is something that, again, we feel that with the totality of this package can help bring us closer to a resolution here.
Qualifying question.
Let me go ahead and speak to the AC issue. The problem there is not the energy conservation one. It has nothing to do with anything such as that cost savings. It's life safety. And we've made you aware in writing a couple years ago, I cannot create a liability for staff or for students. Our air ducts in our schools, unfortunately, are not insulated, which means the condensation can build up and create mold and mildew, which creates airborne issues and respiratory issues. And we were made aware of that, which is why the change was enacted. We provided that documentation. We're on the record stating that publicly. So to now reverse that decision creates a known liability for the district and an exposure for staff and for students. So as we've discussed, there may be solutions to that. We'd have to investigate the cost of insulating our ducts, which quite frankly, I don't know is worth the effort right now because we are going to be renovating our high schools. District is undergoing a comprehensive facilities evaluation, which should be completed, I believe, in December or January. HVAC is a priority for high schools because we used to have the chiller units. And the decision was made about 15, 18 years ago to move to this different type of unit. And those have all exceeded their life expectancy at this point. And unfortunately, in keeping with past district practice, we never planned to replace them. And that's the sad part. We didn't budget for those things. And it's a reality. It's an issue that we're trying to deal with. So the only other option in talking with council would be to determine whether or not an inspection process could be put in place. So I just want to make sure we're being very clear. The reasoning behind the AC, I would not support just leaving it up to the individual employee. I think something we have to come up with mutually agreeable settlement, but we're not going to go below 70.
Okay.
And again, it's a life safety issue. There are a lot of staff. We have pregnancies. We have other medical issues. We already have people with known respiratory disorders. We don't need to contribute to that. Now, I'd be lying to you, and I'll acknowledge this here. We hadn't set it 70 for a long time without any known issues. I say known issues because I don't know if we had any staff develop respiratory disorders as a result of potentially there being no. So we're happy to explore that, but I did want to clarify our position on that right now. because it's gonna be a little bit more complicated to
Mhm.
resolve that topic in particular. Because of the amount of time it's gonna take to estimate insulating ducts or we did look at, I spoke about this today, Mr. Pitts. And with Mr. Warren briefly, I think the issue for us would be, we wouldn't necessarily contract it out, but we would have to hire staff. With 131 traditional schools, the
Mhm.
number of classrooms that have to be inspected minimally twice a year, it would require 3 to 4 additional positions. So that's something we need to explore.
And so with the changing of the thermostats, is everywhere now at 72 or are there exceptions?
Well, the exception is your large training rooms like this, because you get the number of large warm bodies. But these buildings are built differently and their set points are different. And so facility by facility, we can evaluate that. The traditional issue for us tends to be our middle schools and our high schools where the ducts are not insulated. So reducing that. So if you remember, let me give you a good example of what I'm talking about, what I'm trying to explain. You may remember, I think it was my first or second year when we started to address AC issues.
Mhm.
And staff were concerned because they would see black stuff on the return vents.
Mhm.
Well, it was just dirt, it was dust. Because what happens is the moisture develops on that return duct. And then dust attracts to it, it sticks there and gives people the impression that there's mold. And there wasn't mold, because we had it inspected at several buildings.
Mhm.
So that's the issue, right? Is making sure the educational process and other things, but we'd have to go back and look at each individual location. So larger rooms like this that are built for training, we do tend to set the temperatures down lower.
Mhm.
It really depends on the unit
Mhm.
and when it was engineered, when it was installed, and what the specifications are. But for our school buildings, which we provided you documentation on from the engineering firms,
Mhm.
they recommend a set point at 74 degrees. We've been at 72. So it is something we're willing to explore.
Okay.
I mean, I just want to put that out there, but I wanted to provide that explanation. So I know that's an ongoing question for me.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then our last 6 of 6. This might be our favorite. And this actually also doesn't cost you any money. If anything, it will help save money. And so we put this in Teacher Article 8 staffing plan. And we are proposing to add 8.2 to this article. It's a short article. Each district-wide employee who serves in a supervisory role, including but not limited to the superintendent, deputy superintendent, chief of staff, associate superintendents, regional assistant superintendents, assistant superintendent, senior directors, principals, assistant principals, technical college directors, technical college assistant directors, technical college coordinators, of evening programs, etc., will substitute for a classroom teacher for 1 full day each quarter of the regular school year in a classroom-based instructional position. And this would save money because we wouldn't have to pay for subs that day. And I think that it's important that, and we feel that it's important that the people that are running our district don't lose sight of what makes our district run, and that's kids. And that's the teachers and staff on the ground every day doing that work. And I know that we can get into the rhythm of doing another job. Last semester I subbed for a class and I continue, and I will continue to do that. Probably each quarter, because it's important to stay connected to the classroom. And it's important to stay connected to why we're all here and why we all have jobs, and that is for kids. And I think that bringing this forward from our team, this was the one they were probably the most excited about. Because we feel it is important to remain with the vision in mind of students first. And if we can keep that in mind, and you as district folks, it may not have been in the classroom ever, depending on your role, or it might have been a long time, that you can understand what we go through every day to make this system work. And it would be a savings because we would not incur for that day with you guys teaching a class that day. And so with that, those are our 6 language proposals to go with the 2.5 raise overall.
I get my number. Science all day, all day.
Oh, and we can amend this. We forgot Chad. We forgot include the staff attorney. So we'll make sure that we can amend that.
We are gonna go
That'd
to
be what I teach you.
We're gonna go to caucus. Before we do, looking through items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I gather if we had clarifying questions, we would pose them as we go along, but before we go into caucus. Are, are there any questions from the team relative to any of the 6 proposals before we go into caucus we want to clarify?
The only thing, I just want to give them something to look at while we talk this. Stephanie, you guys need to look at FS 1012.6160.
Hold on. Let me get to the sick leave one. Can you say that again?
1012.61 for statute. There is a restriction on what we can pay out for sick leave in statute. Statute unfortunately supersedes different policies. So just something you do there.
Okay.
It caps it at 80%.
Okay. So we will officially go on into caucus.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, everybody, we're ready to come back to order. Start recording, get the tech pieces put together here. I got a thumbs up. And I got a thumbs up, okay,
Waiting on the owl.
and the out. Okay, I think we're ready.
All right.
Stephanie, the first thing that I wanted to do was where you started
Mhm.
with respect to the request of we must agree to numbers on a go forward basis.
Mhm.
So I'll start there. Looking at your sheet that you provided,
Mhm.
if you look at the first green box that provides the numbers for grandfather at 1311,
Mhm.
pay for performance 5415, OTPT, SLI 21, para 1478, ESP 513 for a total of 8738. Those are the numbers we agreed to.
All right, thank you.
And the rest that's on this sheet, I'm gonna take back and continue to review.
Okay,
And we'll discuss at our next scheduled
Okay.
bargaining session. With respect to one of six, which was the paid leaves,
mhm,
we're gonna continue to review this, and we believe that there's a lot to talk about here. We think this is a great concept. but
okay,
The language probably still has some work to be done, so we're gonna go back and hash over that. One of the things that we did talk about was some of the pieces with the emergency clauses or the
Mhm.
use.
and I think we would be agreeable to looking at what you just presented tonight to see if there's a way
Okay.
we can mesh that together.
And that would be welcome, and thank you for that. One of the things we also talked about that I think was a new piece that came out that I didn't put forward to tonight was maybe some committee pieces. So with respect to.
Like what we have
Three
with-
from you, three
Yep.
from us.
Okay, to
So
mirror the
kinda like what
sick
we
leave
do with the
donation.
Sick leave.
Okay.
donation, Right? So we want to take that back.
Okay.
We're open to that. Another thing that we did talk about on item 3, I just want to kind of tell you where where our thoughts are, where you talked about the parental leave does not extend or modify other rights afforded under FMLA. The thought was you don't get the 15 days and then you go on FMLA.
Yeah,
Our discussion is you have this time that you're on FMLA.
Mhm.
And so after that date that FMLA is enacted, the
Yeah.
first 15 days are paid. So it's not
okay.
FMLA plus.
And that's
15.
how unpaid parental leave works right now too. You don't get 12 weeks of FMLA and then another year of parental leave. They run concurrent. Yeah.
Correct. So
Okay,
that's where we're going with some reviews and some language.
we would be
pieces
okay
that go
to
back.
clean that up so it's clearer.
Item 2 of 6 was the teacher authority. This is one that, the student will not be returned to the instructor's classroom or supervision for the remainder of the day. This is one of those things that it falls into code of conduct, and the code of conduct requires board action. We can make recommendations to the board. We can take that back to the board. We can propose the revision, to the code, but obviously we can't mandate from bargaining what goes in the code or that changed the code. But we're very open to taking that back for a discussion for, how that may look with respect to code of conduct.
And I do have a question with that. And because if we're agreeable to something like this, would it and then the board ratifies this along with our units, would that trigger then a change in the code of conduct
I would.
instead of the other
offer
way
some-
around?
I would offer some time to follow back up with you.
Okay,
I think to be direct, I'll be conservative and say, I don't see this as new language in the contract. I would see this as language to be discussed that would be in the code of conduct if it ended up being approved by the board or something that they felt would be appropriate to be placed in a code of conduct.
I have a little bit of an issue with that, because we do currently have a code of conduct. And it is almost daily that we have instances where the code of conduct is not being followed. That is the reason for including it in the contract, so that it is grievable when it is not followed by an administrator.
Your point is heard.
thank you.
We'll now move to 3 of 6, which is sick leave buyback. Again, we're gonna take some time
Mhm.
and work on this.
And we did see the statute.
We acquiesce.
So we, obviously, we follow statute with the 80%, so we would be agreeable, to obviously mirroring that with what statute says. And possibly maybe increasing the days then if we can only get 80% of what they can max out at.
I think there needs to be a work group around this, because we're gonna run the numbers to see what the fiscal exposure would be.
Mhm.
Because if it's too high, we would propose we do something similar as far as terminal pay for accumulated sick leave based off your separation. So the state stipulates what percentage can be paid out depending on your number of years of service.
Mhm.
And that would help us restrict our financial exposure, because it is still a financial exposure. This is not something that's budgeted for annually, as you know. So
Mhm.
we're gonna run the numbers
Okay.
based off how many people have what available leave,
Okay.
and we have to project out worst case scenarios,
Mhm.
and then we'd like to convene again
Mhm.
to work through that.
Okay.
So I don't know that. I think conceptually, we're in a good place.
Okay.
Mutually in a good place. But I think we need to figure out what the specific stipulations and rules will be to
Okay.
apply this. So it's done fairly and
Mhm.
consistently. And I would worry, I think as you would as well, you have an employee, let's say, that has accrued leave. They end up cashing in too much, and then next year they get sick, and now they've got nothing beyond their 10 days. Now they have to come to sick leave bank, and you have a cap on that. So then it's just, there
Yeah.
are some issues there that I think we need to be proactive to address. But again, from our perspective, it's just protecting ourselves financially, that we don't overcommit to something that could be detrimental.
And really what we were looking at with the sick leave buyback idea was that it is mutually agreeable, like it's mutually beneficial, because we get money at the end of the year if we have a lot of extra hours and days, and then it helps you guys actually have a more structured way to kind of budget or look at this structurally, because you're on the hook for it already with the way terminal pay is out, with the way we have it now in our contract and according to statute. But it actually helps you guys have a more structured approach to sick leave and the exposure that you guys have already. And so that's where we were going with that. So
Again, thank you
Yeah.
for telling me 80%, because
yeah,
I knew I was partially correct with the 80s.
yeah. We looked it up when we were on break too.
And I think I said this when you initially presented the language, and I talked about it in caucus as well. I want to qualify the first sentence. It's the max is a 10-day. That's the cap, right?
They'd have to keep 10 days. And
I'm reading the first sentence. Any employee with 11 days or more sick leave days
Could
accrued
cash
by the
out.
end of April may cash in up to 10 days.
yes,
And then it goes
Yes.
farther to say
Yes.
using employees' current regular hourly rate of pay. And then I would believe that later would be said once per year.
Yes,
Period. So,
yeah.
there is a cap that you wrote in here. I
Yes.
just want to be clear. That's the way I'm interpreting.
yes, no, it is a cap, because we also don't want somebody that has 900 hours on the book to be able to cash them out
Because we're
outside of the terminal pay, right? This is more of an incentive. Right now, I'll actually use my microphone, sorry. We were looking at this as a way, kind of thinking about what you proposed with the personal day, right? And thinking about how do we incentivize this in another way without, because a lot of people feel like they can't take a personal day, right? It's more work for them to do that. And so how do you keep them in front of kids unless they are sick or something like that? But then they have an incentive to cash out the days that they didn't use.
I think, again, philosophically, I think we're in a similar
Okay.
place. I think, again, to clarify, because Brian's bringing up a point.
Yeah.
10 days multiplied by 8,000 employees, assuming everyone had more than their 10 on the books, they have 10
Yeah.
extra. Financially, we couldn't sustain that.
Yeah.
It becomes a cash flow issue for us. So
Yeah.
we may need to come back and counter with
Yeah.
a managed plan
Okay,
that allows certain
well, we're open to that.
buckets.
We're open to that.
And that's why it was important to me to qualify the cap.
Yes,
so that
yes,
we have-
because we did put a cap in, and we were trying to be cognizant of that, because we didn't want it to be the wild, wild west
Right.
either.
Do it November before Christmas.
We could also, I actually like that idea, do it in November each year before Christmas. I really like that idea, actually. That's a great idea, Jason.
Moving to 4 of 6, rights and responsibilities.
Can we accept that right now?
This one was the new language on supervisor feedback, and I think the way I'd express this is we're receptive. We're gonna go back and look at it. I
Okay.
have concerns that I will likely bring back next time because I
Okay.
have strong, not just opinion, but I know that there are different avenues within the contract right now.
Mhm.
For example, through the teacher article and it's, with labor management committee
Mhm.
meetings. We've got the association rep has access.
Mhm.
So some of this may be duplicitous.
Yeah.
And so I want to be mindful of that. And I'm not sure at the end of the day, if this particular type of survey, would be, outside the scope and it would be a management right.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying, those are some of the discussionary points that's in the air as we go back to review this.
Well, and to your point with labor management, I mean, that's the only committee in our contracts in 6.7 that's not a mandatory committee. And so we would love it to be a mandatory committee because we do feel that if we can solve things at the lowest level, I mean, we have 165 work sites. Me and Kat and Brandon and Nadia can't be everywhere at once. And so we do want to empower our schools and our work sites and our supervisors to be able to work through things in a constructive manner, right? But right now, labor management is not, it's the only committee that's not mandatory. Principals can say, yeah, no, thank you. And usually our answer to that is like, well, that's fine, but now we have our grievance procedure and we'll just have to grieve if you're not gonna try to solve things at the lowest level. And so, we were really, and we weren't coming at this from a place of being punitive. We really, staff want to be able to provide feedback because if things aren't working, sometimes they don't feel like they can have that open door policy with the supervisor. And so if our regionals and other folks that can help, have a school run smoother and we can solve problems before people do get to a point to where it's just they've had enough, then that's better for everybody. And so that was really where we were coming at this with that intent.
Okay. Thank you. 506 was the heating and air conditioning. I think we've talked about that,
Mhm.
already. I
Okay.
don't have a lot of extra remarks to make about that. And 606 is just language with respect to, you presented it and, it's
You
on the
like it?
table. It's on the table. So we'll get back to you with respect to, revisions or.
Oh, and you missed the fun part.
I missed, Dan. All right, so with respect to this evening and what's been
Okay.
presented, I think we've accomplished, we've got hard numbers.
Mhm.
We put two proposals on the table. You clearly have rejected both of them. We need to end with another bargaining day.
Yep,
So you've given us 6 proposals, so I'm gonna ask, that we not do a 7-day flip on.
I gotcha. I
So
can
let's
expect
look
that.
out for at least a couple weeks.
Okay,
And
Just for clarification, there's some things that we need to address. Don't have board approval.
Mhm.
Authority to negotiate below 5% fund balance.
Mhm.
So as we run our numbers, I have to then work with the board, may have to call a special meeting. So just understand
Okay.
it's maybe a work in progress.
Okay.
The only other clarification, Brian, if I may, you're well aware of this. I think most of our staff are well aware of this. Your proposal takes into account certain positions. The one thing, just to let you know that our counter
Mhm.
or next time we speak, and I would ask you to look at this now.
Okay.
There are 125 positions that are currently funded out of title dollars that the federal government has no intention on renewing next year. And these are positions that support classrooms. This is your ESOL, your migrant, your professional development. And so at the end of the day, those 125 positions, they've made it clear, are not going to be refunded next year. At least that's the state, that's what they're saying. So I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that 125 positions would have to be covered from somewhere.
Can you,
And I'll send you.
yeah, can you send the breakdown?
Yep.
Okay,
So you'll have all those. I don't have the names. I just have the breakdown.
That's fine.
By title program.
that's fine.
So, PD is a great one,
Mhm.
right? So PD has a total of 44 people in,
Mhm.
43.81, because they're split.
Yeah, they split them.
So 44 people. Florida, and I know our state's gonna actually push back against this because Florida has mandates for required trainings for teachers, for reading endorsements and other things.
Mhm.
So how the heck do the school districts comply with federal state
Yeah.
requirements
Mhm.
in the absence of funding for professional development? But they've made it very clear that migrant funding
Mhm.
support, that's 13 positions, another 13 in Part A ESOL. And then there's there's 20 positions in adult ed. And then there's some others in other areas like corrections. So
Mhm.
just, I'll send you
Okay.
that list.
Okay, thank you.
Potential dates. If we
Thank
just
you.
jumped out 2 weeks, that would be like the 15th. So let's start there, and I've got to qualify, we'll check availability and of our rooms and everything like that. But the 15th, 4:30 to 7:30 again be an option. And let's get a couple out there, so
Mhm.
we're not volleying emails back and forth. But first, October 15th, 4:30 to 7:30.
I have a CLC thing, but I could probably move that if that's the
So that would
first
be an option.
available. I could talk to our vice president over there and see if he can cover that.
Do you want to, let's push out and see if,
We can put that tentative and then
A
I'll
tentative.
just need to get back with you to see if my vice president can cover.
and
my
what I'd like to do
PLD.
is get a second date because of
Okay.
scheduling facilities. I know this is going even farther out, but Mondays might be hard. I'm looking at maybe Tuesday, the 21st. Let me see if either Monday, the 20th or
Monday, the 20th would be better, I think, for me. Tuesday would be hard.
okay,
Okay, so Monday, the 20th would be,
but that is an option.
okay,
Our first priority would be the first date.
okay,
Yeah, 4:30 to
Yeah.
7:30.
that's fine.
And should we grab a third just in case?
Yeah, let's do a third just in
And
case.
do you want to then look out even farther for, would that be like a second session or just a third option for our next meeting?
Do you want to try, what about Thursday, the 23rd? Do we have?
I'd be good with that.
Oh, no, we can't do Monday, the 20th. That's our general membership.
Okay.
Sorry, we
So
cannot do the
Tuesday.
20th.
Look toward Wednesday, the 22nd then.
Wednesday, the
We could do that. We could,
We have, I'm sorry, we
Yeah.
have classes scheduled for
right.
almost every Wednesday of the school year.
What about, well,
Okay.
start with Thursday for where Stephanie was
can we
talking.
do the 23rd?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's put the 23rd,
So we're getting rid of the 20th and the 20th. So we have the 15th and the 23rd.
15th, 23rd. Do you want to try the 27th, which is a Monday? I know that's the day before the next regular board meeting. Or do you want to try to do it right after that regular board meeting?
Monday, the 27th would be an option.
Okay,
And you know what I think I'd like to do, thinking about a second meeting, let's go ahead and look out maybe like into like November the 12th.
that's a Wednesday.
It is
Could
a-
we do? We're trying to get 4.
Oh.
No,
but
those
that's
are
the
not,
next meeting.
No.
clearly those are not all bargaining days.
No.
We're gonna do one of those three as an option.
Okay,
And I'm trying to get a second one that would be like
I
the
gotcha.
second session, so it'd be our fourth.
I
no,
gotcha.
Yeah, no,
Fifth.
our fifth session,
could we do Monday, the 10th?
Monday the 10th.
The internet doesn't work.
Monday the 10th would work for
All right.
us, I think. So we'll try to get
Okay.
one date for 2 weeks out from
Okay.
here. And then we'll try to grab another date, so we'll have it on the
Okay.
books, anticipating we'll come back and have more to talk about
All right,
for our fifth session. So we'll schedule session 4 and 5 with these options.
perfect. All right, that sounds good.
So with that, Stephanie, I'm done for
Yep,
tonight.
I think we are too. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you coming in.